webinar. So just so you know. And I'm going to go ahead and give it over to Maria and Sophia, who will introduce themselves and give an overview of the agenda.
Hello, everyone. This is Maria Flores. I'm the Director of Title II Part A and Special Programs at OSPI, and I've been the lead on implementing some of the cultural competence work from the Educational Opportunity Gap Oversight and Accountability Committee. And with me is Sophia.
And I'm available to answer any questions you have or clarification you might need around implementing this training program in your district.
Sophia, this is Maria. Can you repeat what you said? Because I think it was on mute for the majority of it.
So, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I will be your primary contact at PCG Education. I'm available to answer any questions you have or clarification around implementing this training program in your district.
Thank you. So the agenda for today, I'm going to give a little bit of the policy background and some of the changes with the Professional Educator Standards Board and OSPI that led up to this training. We're going to go over the training components and how to access the different elements of the training with Sophia. And then we'll have a section at the end for question and answers. So I wanted to share the OSPI vision, mission, and values. Again, many of you have seen this, but one of the things under Superintendent Regdahl that we're focusing on explicitly is closing opportunity gaps and ensuring equity. And when we say ensuring equity, this is what we mean. Oh, hold on, just a sec. Okay, so the equity statement that we created for OSPI starts from an asset-based place, and I'm actually going to read this to you. Each student, family, and community possesses strengths and cultural knowledge that benefits their peers, educators, and schools. Ensuring educational equity goes beyond equality. It requires education leaders to examine the ways current policies and practices result in disparate outcomes for our students of color, in poverty, and our students receiving special education English learner services, and students who identify as LGBTQ+, and highly mobile student populations. It requires education leaders to develop an understanding of historical context, engage students, families, and community representatives as partners in decision-making, and actively dismantle systemic barriers, replacing them with policies and practices that ensure all students have access to the instruction and support they need to succeed in our schools. I'm reading this to you, even though you probably have seen it before, because the shift here is moving away from deficit-based language, focusing on what students bring to schools, and making it active and putting the onus on education leaders to dismantle inequitable practices. So let's go into the background on cultural competency policy in Washington State. In 2009, there was a cultural competency work group that was created. The Professional Educator Standards Board led this group and worked with the Educational Opportunity Gap Oversight and Accountability Committee, or EOGOIC, to identify model standards for cultural competency and to make recommendations to the legislature about model standards. In this section of law, they defined cultural competency to include the knowledge of a student's cultural histories and context, family norms and values in different cultures, knowledge and skills in accessing community resources and community and parent outreach, and skills in adapting instruction to students' experiences and identifying cultural context for individual students. The Professional Educator Standards Board adopted in their teacher standards cultural competency standards from the Cultural Competency Work Group. The adoption of the standards actually was embedded throughout, well, other standards, but mostly in Standard 5 for all teacher candidates who are in colleges of ed to become teachers. So this has been in place since 2010. So teachers who have graduated since 2010 have had some access to this content in their College of Ed. However, most of our veteran teachers have not had this content in their college program, and have had it at varying degrees from their school districts. These are the elements of the cultural competency components that are in the standards. So professional ethics within a global and multicultural society, civil rights and non-discrimination law, reflective practice, self-awareness and anti-bias, and repertoires of practice for teaching effectiveness for culturally diverse populations. In 2016, 1541, which was an omnibus bill from the Educational Opportunity Gap Oversight and Accountability Committee, was passed, and it included that OSPI must create some training with foundational elements of cultural competency, focusing on multicultural ed and principles of English language acquisition. This funding from this bill is what created these modules that you're about to see. The content in the module had to be aligned to the PSB standards, and in the bill, it strongly encouraged school districts in improvement status to use this professional development with their staff types. A version of the bill that did not pass in the biennium previous to when 1541 passed had mandatory training with funding for all school districts for seat time, but that was struck out and now it's a strongly encouraged. Another thing that came from 1541 was some funding for the teacher and principal evaluation project to articulate where our program, where in TPEP, in the different instructional frameworks, cultural competency was an expectation and measured. And this is one of the criterion in the state 8 criterion around differentiation that is attached to cultural competency. There is a full crosswalk on the TPEP website that goes through the different frameworks to articulate this. So what is cultural competency? I mentioned this earlier when I was giving the background, but this is the actual definition in statute. One of the things that you'll notice is there's some of the language that's in here is very reflective of what's in OSPI's equity statement, sort of the background and understanding the history and the context of a community and of a student's identity, and also different cultural values and different cultures. The other thing in here is an emphasis, again, on the skills in adapting instruction to a student's experience. So a culturally competent teacher is able to have culturally responsive instruction tailored to help each of their students, regardless of their cultural background, be able to access content and be very effective in school. We're going to transition in just a sec to the components of the training.
Okay. Hello, this is Sophia again. So I'll be talking about the components of the training. There are 3 main components. The central component is the online course, Becoming a Culturally Responsive Teacher with Strategies for Language Acquisition. Now, this course aligns to the OSP requirements, and it includes all 13 elements in the PSB Cultural Competence Matrix. The course features video footage of classroom practice, and I'll be showing you some of that in a little while. Practitioner reflections, readings, classroom footage, presenter videos, and ongoing checks for understanding. A second component of the training are the facilitator guides and PowerPoint decks, which will provide district facilitators support on how to implement culturally responsive training in your district. There is also a virtual resource center with other materials recommended by OSPI to support this work. And then finally, we have a dedicated customer support team to provide any troubleshooting support as participants are taking the course or using the resource center, and to answer any questions related to the content. Now, the training program is designed to be implemented in districts as follows. So step 1, districts should identify a facilitator for your district. Now, this could include a district equity lead or department member, an instructional coach, or any other appropriate person in your district. Step 2, an identified facilitator completes the online cultural competency course. Now, 1 user license to the course has been provided to each district statewide. Step 3, the facilitator will review the facilitator guides and the activities within it and design a session. So step 4, the district-based facilitator plans and delivers a series of PLC sessions to teachers or teacher trainers in your district using the guide. So that could be a single session, a series of sessions. And then step 5, teachers and staff will engage in the PLC sessions using those activities from the guide and focused on incorporating those culturally competent practices in their practice. Next. So the training program includes these main resources, the online course, the facilitator guide, the PowerPoint presentation slide deck, and the program resource center. And I'll be looking at these more deeply as we continue the presentation. The online course modules were adapted from the work of these two presenters, Gary Howard, Becoming a Culturally Responsive Teacher. Now he has over 35 years of experience. You may know him working with issues of civil rights, social justice, equity. He's delivered extensive training in cultural competence and culturally responsive practices to districts. His book, We Can't Teach What We Don't Know, is considered a groundbreaking work in this area. The second author presenter is Dr. Eugenia Mora Flores. She's an associate professor at the Rossier School of Education at the University of Southern California. She teaches courses on first and second language acquisition, Latino culture, and courses in literacy development. So these are the online course objectives. Participants will learn culturally competent behaviors, beliefs, and attitudes. The direct relationship between teachers' level of cultural competence and students' level of achievement. How issues of privilege and social dominance impact student success and engagement. 7 foundational principles of culturally responsive teacher. And teaching and how to establish a context that supports English learners in the classroom. So the facilitator taking the online course will be able to use this content, these approaches to deliver those sessions to teachers in their district. So next we'll be looking at a course preview video of the online modules. So this will give you a sense of the training course.
Are just a year in the building, and then our new staff are fresh out of college. And I guess they thought they were prepared to deal with a diverse population. And then they got here and met the kids, and they're not.
And my first 5 years in teaching were in the Catholic schools as well, all white. And then when I came into the public schools, it was a world of difference for them and for me. And I had to learn how to relate to a lot of my children.
This class is going to take us into that journey, very personal journey around what it means, first of all, to be culturally competent on that personal journey, and then the professional journey of what it means to be a culturally responsive teacher in our classroom.
I think it's really important that districts and leaders within districts provide professional development for teachers, specifically to work with English learners. We haven't successfully given them the tools, and there are a lot of tools out there, but it takes quality training for teachers.
So this course is important for teachers to take because what I think teachers have been struggling with for a long time is understanding the language needs of students in their classrooms. Specifically looking at the needs of English language learners and understanding not only where they are in their language development, but how once you can identify their needs, to know and understand what are the next steps.
I think one of the most powerful strategies that we have is that young people, the students that we work with, that they have a sense that this teacher in this classroom, at this moment of my life, believes in me, sees me, respects me.
The biggest part of anything you do as a new teacher is going to be about building relationships at the beginning, because you can't teach anybody if you haven't built the relationships in the classroom. Climate is not warm, the kids don't feel safe, and the kids don't feel like a unit.
So when we talk about culturally responsive teaching, when we talk about cultural competence, what we're talking about developing teachers to be able to have strategies to engage students in instruction.
What does it actually look like in the classroom? And for that, we're going to shift our attention to what I call the 7 principles of culturally responsive teaching.
Just building the relationship with them the minute they walk in the door, checking on them, making sure they're okay, listening to the little one talk about her boo-boo that she had on her elbow, just listening to their stories, and then making sure they all feel safe and know that it's a safe environment for them to get started.
I made a conscious effort to go around my room and like the things that I have decorating my room and whatnot. Let's be a little bit more representative. So I have 27 different countries to choose from that I can plaster my walls with. But then I also involve the kids' personal cultures too. I have graduation photos, prom pictures.
I think we as teachers get wrapped up into what I have to teach them, what standard I have to give to them. This workshop makes you look at what your students have to teach you.
My mindset totally changed and how I could use that diversity to my advantage. And use it to enrich the learning that was going on in my classroom and my school.
The most important thing is that teachers have to believe that they can learn and that they are capable of doing what any other student can do. And when you have that belief, then you start to see them in another way, because they have the knowledge and they have the intellect. It's just about giving them the tools to achieve their academic potential.
So that should have provided you a little overview and a snippet of what the experience is in the online course in terms of the videos that are provided to show the practitioner perspectives, as well as video footage in classrooms, etc. Okay.
Inclusive education is really a concept that is
Hold
so
on
much
just
broader
a sec. I think
than
the
I think many
video is
people
playing
think
in the
it is.
background.
Is this more?
Okay, we fixed it. Sorry,
Thank
folks.
Okay.
All right.
Can you go back just one more slide, please?
Yes, there we go.
Okay, so I'm going to do a quick overview of the main resources, and then I'm going to give an actual tour of the Program Resource Center and the course itself. So the facilitator's guide, after taking the course, the district-based facilitator can use this guide to plan those PLC sessions. I've got up right there the table of contents from the facilitator's guide. And then it includes those session-by-session activities and related resources that can really allow the facilitator to hit the ground running and delivering either a full day or a half-day session and workshop around cultural and linguistic competency.
And I'm going to jump in real quick. This is Maria again. So one of the things in the facilitator's guide and in the materials that Sophia is going to show you is that we set it up for a half day and a full day sort of lesson plan in case that's all that you have in a district. But as you go through the materials, you'll notice that you can structure this in a more job-embedded, research-based way where you could do it over the course of a whole year, doing PLCs every week if you wanted to. There's a lot of extension activities, and that's what we would prefer for you to do, but we wanted to be responsive to districts who don't have that much time. So it's kind of choose your own adventure on how far you want to go with this.
Yes, and also PCG Education, if a district wants to also go deeper in this work, you can contact us. We have a vast catalog of content on equity and cultural and linguistic competency developed with other authors and experts in the field, in addition to Eugenia Mora Flores and Gary Howard. So that's also another option. Then we also have the PowerPoint slide decks. Those support the structured activities, guiding questions, and participant-led discussions included in the facilitator's guide. So there are two versions available that align to either the full-day activities in the facilitator's guide or the half-day activities. The Program Resource Center is the area that you access the online course. There are resources aligned to the different components and student groups that have been loaded in the Resource Center. You can connect with other facilitators engaged in similar work, so it also has a platform for collaboration and sharing. And that will allow other participants from districts across the state to share resources using this platform.
And in that platform, OSPI will post updates. We also be moderating that platform, and we ask anything that's posted in there be open source and vetted material.
Okay, so I'll take you on a course tour. Okay, so this is the dashboard, the login area after you've logged into the Resource Center. In this area, you can share resources with other facilitators who have access to this Resource Center. You can access the materials that are the main components of the training. Those are available right here. So there is the facilitator's guide. So the facilitator's guide, as I've mentioned, is used to support facilitators who will be providing these sessions within districts. There is a section that explains how to use the facilitator's guide, so sort of an overview. It has action items so you can prepare prior to doing that. It explains the Program Resource Center. There's a section on establishing workshop norms. And then there's the section on the full day workshops. So all materials are included, a list of those materials that the facilitator would need, workshop objectives, guiding questions, and then a series of activities. It includes estimated times for delivering those activities. It includes links to video clips within the course that align with that specific activity. And then there's a similar a structure for the half-day sessions. And then finally, there are additional extension activities at the very end of the facilitation guide. Similarly, there are the PowerPoint decks that are provided and available for facilitators to use. Again, this is so that when they're delivering, whether those half-day or full-day workshop sessions, they have a PowerPoint deck that can be used to support the session. And it aligns with the activities in the guide itself. It has information on the course authors, quotes, and activity summaries. Okay. So again, as Maria was pointing out, OSPI will post on occasion updates that in this area related to the training. There's also a section under My Groups that Maria will speak a little bit more about, where OSPI has loaded specific materials aligned to high need areas.
Yeah, and in our My Groups section, so you'll notice that some of them are labeled with the components from the PSB cultural competency standards. There's materials in there that we did some research on that are open source from trusted folks like Teaching Tolerance, the Southern Poverty Law Center, that align to those components to support them. We also have different protected classes with materials in there like gender identity and expression and Native American students. Particularly in the Native American student one, we put in some of the information about the Since Time Immemorial curriculum, which is the required sovereignty curriculum in Washington State to teach about Native sovereignty. So those resources are in there, again, as extension resources for your district and for you to be responsive to the students that you serve.
Okay. And then in this section, under My Courses, is where the content and modules are related to Gary Howard and Eugenia Mora Flores. So when you come to this section, there are various tabs at the top. You can go straight to the course outline. And this will show an overview of the course itself. So as you can see, there are 8 units within the course. There's a pre-survey and post-survey. I'm going to open one of the units so you can see sort of an overview of the units and the activities within it. There are readings in each unit, reflection questions, a series of videos. The video activities have this icon with the video strip. There are also checks for understanding and forum posts towards the end of each unit. I'm going to click on one of the videos so you can see how those look within the course. One moment.
So while Sophia's, oh, there it goes.
You wanted to say something, Maria?
Oh, I was just going to say briefly, so we didn't say this earlier, and it's in the letter from Superintendent Regdahl, but when you're setting this up with your staff, just remind them that this is not, you take a cultural competency course and you're done. It's a lifelong continuum. It's a journey that we go through throughout our career. And some of these courses go into very specific areas or specific student groups. But I think that trying to always set it up from a place of we're all learning and we're all on this journey together helps a lot with the folks being receptive to it.
Yep. Okay.
My name is Pam Cooper, and I'm the principal at Sanders Elementary in PRP, Pleasure Ridge Park, part of Louisville, Kentucky. The front porch at Sanders Elementary is a very welcoming place. It's a place where when kids get off the bus, they see an adult. It's usually myself or an administrative staff member. I have a SAM, a school administrative manager, And it's a place where we greet the children and welcome them with opening arms. It's usually a handshake, high five, or a hug, or, it's just some place where we give them a smile, kind of check them out. We can tell immediately, as soon as the children start exiting the bus, who's ready and who's not, kind of thing. You were riding a dirt bike? Did you have fun? Oh, and you're still all in one piece. Okay, see you in a little bit, Alan. Good morning. How are you, Jerica? I had a good day. I love your yellow. Good morning. How are you doing? And they're looking for that. They're looking for.
And the course of videos have features such as adding a bookmark. So as you are reviewing the video footage, if you want to write a note, you can make a note, save it.
That love and that.
And then you can go back to it later using the jump to. So it allows you to go back to the content, review it, share it with others. There's also the notes section where you can access those notes that you've made. There are transcripts available, and the transcripts reflect the dialogue in the video. That's also printable for future reference. There are a host of resources within each unit. So there are readings, both from the actual course authors and from other experts in the area of equity, cultural competency. There are rubrics, there are graphic organizers that can be used by educators in the classroom. So some examples I've pulled up here. So this is a graphic organizer showing Gary Howard's 7 principles of culturally responsive teaching. This is a reading from the course. There is a resource around having a personal growth plan. There are chapters from Gary Howard's book in each unit that align with the course content in that specific unit. Now, to get back to the content for Eugenia Mora Flores, that would be in this section, course outline, and it follows the same structure. Okay, so we're going to take some questions and answers at this point.
So there was a question in the chat box about how long does the online course take? And there was a response from Kristen from PCG, typically 12 to 14 weeks to complete the course. I don't know if the question was about each specific course. As you saw Sophia go through it, there are lots of natural breaks or sections that you can chunk out to do shorter bits if you only have an hour or longer training. You could, with all the materials, because there's so many, fill a whole year with training if you wanted to, honestly. So it's really tailored to which bits that you want to focus on.
And also, just to add, the facilitator's guide provides some direction as to key areas that you might want to hone in on, video clips, readings, resources. So that's another way if you need to kind of take this with a shorter period of time than that.
Yeah. So any other questions? If you can type them into the chat box, that would be helpful. Okay.
I'll give a second to see if there's any more questions that come in. I've shared a link in the chat for our survey, and the survey is to share your experience if you have used the training modules at all so far? And also, if you haven't, what assistance you need in the future to be able to use them, if this webinar was helpful for you, or if you also just want to send me your contact information if you have other questions or want to have a conversation about it. Looks like I have another question.
So there's a question from Nicole Rodriguez that says, my question was specific to the facilitator course completion. So is it 12 to 14 weeks for the facilitator to complete the online course before they review the guide and plan learning? No, I don't think that that you need the 12 to 14 weeks for the facilitator. The facilitator should definitely look through the materials ahead of time. The facilitator's guide that Sophia was showing you and mentioned with the half day and the full day does appropriate sequencing with extension materials and activities so that you don't have to think through the sequencing if you want to just get started right away. But I think we would prefer, and obviously it's good facilitation for the person teaching it to have reviewed the materials and kind of gone through it first so they have a sense of what they're going to be teaching their staff. Every district has the user login, and it's up to the district to think how they want to structure it. So this is to be responsive to the diversity of our districts. Some districts have entire departments focused on professional development and learning, others don't. Think through who in your district usually leads professional learning. If you have folks in your district who have already done some coursework or have some experience with cultural competency, it would probably be good to tap them and use them to help sort of do train the trainer around the facilitation of this. You could do this in small groups, you could do this in large groups, you could do this individually, although that's not preferred. But think about the facilitation structure in your district and how it would be best to structure that. So yeah, the answer is it doesn't take 12 to 14 weeks. Read the facilitator's guide first and start poking around in the materials, I think is probably the best way to start. And definitely before you do a training session, review the materials you're going to train on.
And just to piggyback on what you were saying, Maria, I would say it would also depend on the facilitator's background. I think there could be a lot of variability in time needed to prepare. So what's the degree of background delivering this kind of training, this content, or similarly in delivering workshop sessions. But I'm certainly available to speak to anyone who might want a sort of more structured answer to that question. My email is up on the screen, sthwaits@pcgus.com. So if you want to ring me or email me, I can certainly, based on your background, provide a little better answer to that question in terms of how long it might take you or the person selected to do this work in your district.
I have the contact information up on the screen, and I've shared in the chat, but in case you haven't seen it, if you have a question about who in your district or your ESD currently has access to the login, you can email us at title2quality@k12.wa.us. The logins were originally sent to the district superintendent, and some districts have identified another person to have that access. So sometimes it's somebody else. If you're not sure who it is, I can let you know. Also, if you need to reassign it to somebody else, I can do that as well. So you can give us an email or call.
And you can also call Title II Part A if you have any questions about sort of broader context and how to weave this into the work within Washington. We have another question about what is the requirement for the training and who is required to be trained. There is no requirement in law for the training. When I mentioned earlier that in the bill that preceded the law that created this training, they had this as required, but that did not pass the legislature. So it is not required. However, it is highly encouraged. This training is not sort of the type of training that we would, I guess what I'm saying is this training helps many other state initiatives that you are already focusing on. It's not something else, or another thing to do. It will help teachers do better in their evaluation. It will help them do better in instruction. So we would strongly encourage you to take the training. And also we understand that many districts have already started along this journey with cultural competency training, and that this might, they might have already had some exposure with their staff to some of these concepts. And so this could be an extension activity for them. But no, there is not a requirement to take the training, and there's no required trainees. Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you so much for your time. If anything comes up after the webinar, please email either Sophia or us at Title II, and we are here as resources to help you with this.
Thank you.
Thank you.